Hello, 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 and welcome to Nursing News You Can Use at 5. I'm Tina Baxter, and I'm your host. And I want to thank you for tuning in. Hello to those that are on our Nurse Shark Academy page, and those of you that are on our Baxter Professional Services page, and those of you on YouTube. Hello, hello. Welcome to our live show where we talk about everything nursing, business, and news. All right, so let's get started with our affirmations and inspirational quotes for today. Optimism is one thing more associated with success and happiness than any other. I'm going to say that again. Optimism is one thing more associated with success and happiness than any other. And this is a quote attributed to Mark Twain. The two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. The two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. And our last affirmation and quote: life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass, it's about dancing in the rain. Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass, it's about dancing in the rain. And those are inspirational quotes from the Inspirational Daily Calendar by Lauren Dratch. Okay, so we've got that started for today. I instead of doing the what I'm reading segment, I do want to talk about um, the what I'm up to, and that is getting ready for our challenge. Now, I decided to talk about this at the top of the show, and I'm going to talk again about it towards the end. But we are going to have our 3-day How to Start a Nursing Assistant Training School challenge. Now, this is where I'm going to break it down on some of the steps that you need to get started in your school if you want to have a training school. As some of you know, I have decided to relaunch my CNA training school under my own brand. I'm going to be adding QMA, and I already have home health aid already under my own brand. And so I wanted to make sure that since I've done this twice now, I wanted to help others to do the same. And so I'm going to have our 3-day challenge. It's free. You just register, sign up. You can go to the nursesharkacademy.biz and sign up for the challenge and register. And then if you want to be VIP and you want to come back in the room, in the Zoom room, and be able to ask questions and get more interaction, feel free to do that as well. So I wanted to go ahead and let you know about those things that are coming up and get you started, because I really want to give nurses a chance to become entrepreneurs and business owners and to soar. That is my goal. And so I wanted to share that with you this next week, the 18th, 19th, and 20th, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can sign up at the nursesharkacademy.biz for our free challenge. You can also go to our Facebook page, the Nurse Shark Academy page, and the event is listed there as well in our Nurse Shark Academy challenge group. So get into our challenge group, and that's how you're actually going to access the content unless you're a VIP, and then you'll get an invitation to the Zoom room. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and move on into our news today because we've got a lot to cover. So this first article has come from McKnight's Long-Term Care News, and I wanted to share this with you because if we've been talking about the mandates that the feds are looking at for nursing homes, and so the American Healthcare Association has some words for the White House, and this is what they say in McKnight's Long-Term Care News. So the AHCA says a federal nursing home staffing mandate would be, quote, impossible to implement and a, quote, disaster, especially for seniors on Medicaid. President and CEO Mark Parkinson reiterated the association's serious concerns regarding an expected federal staffing mandate, once again highlighting shortages and unabating financial pressures in a system supported by government payers. It goes on to say, quote, if your administration imposes this mandate, more nursing homes will close, especially facilities that uniquely serve our most vulnerable. Nursing homes that primarily care for residents on Medicaid won't have the resources to recruit staff or pay for this mandate. Those facilities, as well as those who serve and employ, will be hurt the most. To reiterate, this policy will have the opposite impact than intended. The unintended consequences would be numerous and damaging to the nation's ability to serve seniors in need. So there are some concerns because what we've been seeing is that nursing homes that are either owned by states or owned by counties have been closing. And we've previously reported on this in the past. And so the White House is continuing to review a rule by CMS that is expected to release this spring, but it's been under review since May. They've met with leaders from the AHCA and Leading Age. Advisory meetings will continue this week with input being provided by the National Rural Health Association on Monday and the American Hospital Association on Tuesday. It says, as he sought to turn up the heat on decision makers with Tuesday's letters, the AHCA's Parkinson referenced more than 500 pandemic-era closures, highlighting that more than 40% of those were among 4- and 5-star rated facilities. He said that the nursing shortage would make new staffing mandate impossible to implement, requiring the hiring of 191,000 additional caregivers, including more than 44,000 RNs. I don't know, what do you have to say about this? Because on the one hand, in the interim, in the immediate, yeah, okay, it's going to hurt. It's gonna be hard, right? But in the long term, are we willing to give up long-term gains for short-term pain? I understand their argument that it's going to be hard to hire some of these people, but then it goes back to the previous articles that we've reviewed where some of these facilities are siphoning money and not using it for what they're intended to. They're just lining the pockets of for-profit corporations. And so there are a lot of concerns here. And to say that blanketly that this is not good probably is not going to fly. So Parkinson called on the White House to more seriously consider a series of, quote, 21st century solutions, including immigration reform that would allow foreign-born aides and nurses to help nursing homes fill the 190,000 jobs still open after the pandemic losses and add new roles. Well, I want to say that one of the things we hope to do is to help with that pipeline, and by reopening the school, which is one of the reasons why I reopened the school, is because now is the time for people to get training. We need nursing assistants. We need nurses in the field, and I recognize that. And I want to be at least a little part of that solution. So we'll see what happens. But we'll keep an eye on that. So I wanted to get to some other nursing news here. This is coming from Indiana Business. I found this interesting, and this is kind of a good news story. So I don't like to just cover things that are negative. I always like to cover the positive too. And so it says Cameron Hospital and Trine break ground on $10 million in a nursing building. So this is exciting. So in Angola, Indiana, Cameron Memorial Community Hospital and Trine University officials broke ground Tuesday on a new nursing education center. The Cameron Education and Innovation Center in Angola will feature a 3-story, 32,000 square foot facility with multiple classrooms, simulation rooms, offices, and a 10-bed skills lab. Hospitals and university leaders announced their new collaboration in March after Trine received Indiana State Board of Nursing approval for a new Associate of Science in Nursing program. Leaders of the project say that they hope the new center, expected to open in November or December of 2024, can help strengthen the nursing pipeline as the profession continues to project shortages. According to Cameron Chief Nursing Officer Julie McCormick, it's no secret health care organizations across the United States are dealing with nursing shortages, and Cameron is not immune to those trends. Cameron's decision to invest in this new facility allows the organization to be proactive in addressing a new program to be housed in a state-of-the-art education and training facility. The new 5-semester nursing program is expected to begin in fall of 2023 and will allow graduates to apply for registered nurse licensure through examination. Trine officials said that they will prioritize affordable and small class sizes in the new nursing program. Students seeking new associate's degree will have access to new Cameron facility as well as resources in Trine's Angola campus. So very exciting to hear that. And this is coming on the heels of Taylor University in Fort Wayne opening up their new nursing program. So it's very exciting to see. All right, let's go on to our next story. All right, this is about a care facility nurses to go on a 7-day strike amid shameful wage dispute in Honolulu, Hawaii. It says nurses and nurse aides at Oahu care facility in Makoli, Malili have announced a 7-day strike amid an ongoing wage dispute. Care facility workers were seen picketing Wednesday morning along Baratina Street. Sorry, I'm just butchering these names here. The union argues that the care facility is negotiating in bad faith and offering below market wages. Nurses at the facility have been without a contract since February. Hawaii Nurses Association President Daniel Ross said the union tried to avoid a strike. He says, "You can make more at McDonald's than the people that are taking care of your grandmother. It's shameful. They ought to be ashamed of themselves for that. To our knowledge, no one pays lower than this facility. None of the ones we know of. They need to at least get up to the same range because when people apply and they see what the wage is, they leave." And that's been a big problem. We've talked about that here, where as a CNA, oftentimes, depending on where you work, you can make more money flipping burgers at McDonald's or places like that. And how is it that you're going to attract people to some what can be some very difficult work, some heartbreaking work, some backbreaking work, and yet you don't want to compensate them appropriately? According to the a nursing assistant, Nancy Along, our residents are more important right now. They are so very important. They really are a second family. We need to keep them in good shape. We need to keep them safe. This came from HNN, who reached out to Oahu Care Facility for a response, and they have not heard back. So let's turn to St. Louis. So while we're dealing with shortages, the fact that there aren't enough staff are being underpaid, staff are going in strike, worried about staffing mandates. We also have to worry about budgets. So this is in the St. Louis area. This is coming out of Marlboro. And it's a group that monitors St. Louis area nursing homes pushes back on budget veto. A funding increase for a group that monitors St. Louis area nursing homes was among the items recently vetoed from the state's annual budget. Voice, the Marlboro-based nonprofit that serves as a long-term care ombudsman program locally, said Friday that additional funding would have allowed it to send more staff and volunteers into the hundreds of facilities to speak with residents, educate staff, and try to catch problems before they become serious. The line item veto was part of the more than $550 million in cuts Missouri Governor Mike Parson made to the state's $50 billion spending plan for the fiscal year beginning July 1st. His move brought the $2.3 million allocation down to $150,000. That is a devastating blow. I don't care how you look at it. I've worked with nonprofits before. That is a devastating blow, considering the fact of all that they are tasked to do. Funding was left intact for a long-sought widening of Interstate 70 and additional spending on child care and residents with disabilities. But the line items that covered multiple local community projects were cut, including $2 billion to clean up abandoned buildings in the North South St. Louis County city of Kinloch, and $5 million to remove condemned and vacant property in St. Louis. In a veto message, Parsons cited a general concern about ensuring, quote, the financial stability of Missouri beyond my administration and the current General Assembly. But he also argued that there are other sources of funding that could be tapped to pay for the program. He said money could be transferred from a $32.6 million fund within the Department of Health and Senior Services to a program operated by area agencies on aging. In a statement, DHSS said the current program will remain intact. It says, quote, the Ombudsman program funding is not being reduced technically. They are just not receiving the additional funds requested in this year's budget, so they will continue to operate with funding from the Older Americans Act and general revenue that they have used in years past, according to spokesperson Lisa Cox. Voice is the ombudsman for a large portion of eastern Missouri, covering 20 counties and the city of St. Louis. The current budget for Voice Ombudsman program is about $350,000 annually, said Voice Executive Director Marjorie Moore, and she's expecting to see an additional $800,000 from the budget increase. That funding would have been transformative, Moore said. Voice has 5 regional ombudsman coordinators who visit 300 long-term care facilities to speak with residents, field complaints, and offer education to staff. The additional funding would have allowed it to hire 10 more coordinators. So again, what we're seeing is that there's a lack of resources and one of the most vulnerable of populations. So I'm hoping that they can come up with another way to fund the program, because you've got 20 counties and a big city and probably several buildings in each of those counties. That's a lot for a staff of 10 to get to. And you wonder why complaints aren't acted upon fast enough. Well, this is partially why you can't get a hold of an ombudsman when you want to. This is partially why, because things like this happen. And so I'm hoping that this will help. So I want to talk about a couple of things, and we're going to talk about this. Let's talk about something more positive for a second before we move to some stories about nurses going wild. Okay, this is from nurse.org. This is mandatory overtime restricted for New York nurses. On July 6th, a new law came into effect that restricts nurses from working more than their regular scheduled hours. This new law does have some exceptions to it. These include disasters and emergencies, also in situations that need to ensure patient safety, such as long surgical cases. When exceptions are in use, employers have to notify the New York State Department of Labor. You can view the new law on the New York Senate website. Find that interesting. So the law restricts overtime above, quote, regularly scheduled work hours, which is going to include pre-scheduled on-call hours, communicating shift reports regarding patients, and normally scheduled work hours agreed upon and allocated to the nurse's position. If allocated work hours per the physician are not set, then other measures for minimum work can be agreed upon. The new law does not restrict voluntary overtime. So that's a win. And so I would have to say, having worked in the hospital as a staff nurse, one of the reasons why I left that hospital was because of mandatory overtime. When you go into work, you would never know if you got to go home. And there was what was the final straw for me was that I worked 3 doubles back to back. So I would normally work 7P to 7A. I ended up having to work 7P to noon, go home, sleep a little bit, come back, supposedly work my 8 hours, only to find out that, someone called in, so I had to stay over again to go home, come back to work my 8 hours, and then find out, it's your turn in the rotation to be on call again, so now you have to stay. So I worked 3 doubles back to back, and it was not pretty. It was very brutal. And it was at that point that I decided enough was enough, and I needed to find a new job, and I did. And I think that was the catapult to where I am in my nursing career today. Okay, so according to the new law, it says it limits nursing's working hours, but it does allow for certain exceptions like emergencies, disasters, situations where patient safety requires overtime like surgery. That makes sense. It says if the employer does not comply with this new law, they will be subject to fines. Fines for the first violation, fines not to exceed $1,000. For the second violation, within 12 months, will be up to $2,000, and the third offense and subsequent up to $3,000. The New York State Department of Labor has appointed the Deputy Commissioner for Worker Protection, Janet Lizelle, as the enforcement officer over this new law. So we'll see what happens because obviously um, hospitals aren't happy about it. Um, Dr. James McDonald, the New York State Department Health Commissioner, said that this new law offers a valuable tool for retaining nurses and rebuilding a resilient healthcare workforce. All patients deserve quality care, which is unfeasible for nurses who often are required to work shifts that stretch human capabilities. So we'll see what happens. So that seems to be a bit of a victory. The New York State Nurses Association is touting this as a victory. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how this goes. And maybe if it goes well, this might open up the door for other states to do the same. Okay. All right. Let's get into this one. This is interesting. This is from Montana Public Radio, and I just brought this up because we've been talking about expanding nursing programs and requirements, etc. And so in Montana, there's discussion about a proposal to cut education requirements for nurses. The Montana Nursing Association is speaking out against proposed changes to state rules that would eliminate required continuing education courses for nurses. The Montana Department of Labor is proposing to cut 12 hours of continuing education for advanced practice nurses to renew their license. Now, I'm going to say this. Let's just say this at the outset. If you're an advanced practice nurse and you have a certification, which in order to work a lot of times it requires certification, you're going to have to do this continuing education anyway. So for them cutting it out, you're going to have to do it for your specialty. So it says labor officials says there hasn't been a spike in complaints related to incompetent practice since those education requirements were put on hold to keep nurses on the job during the pandemic. The Montana Nurses Association says that the changes are dangerous and will make it harder for nurses to keep up with rapid advancements in healthcare. So they're going to have a public hearing. If you're in Montana, there's a public hearing on this proposed rule on July 21st. So if you're in in Montana, you want to make sure that you participate in this if you're a nurse. But I can say, as an advanced practice nurse, you're going to have to do it for your specialty anyway. And I would hate to be opted out of mandatory education, because how would you stay up to date in things and new changes, new advancements? I hate to say it, and this goes not just for advanced practice nurses, but physicians as well. If you don't we don't have to do those things. We oftentimes will get busy doing day-to-day life and seeing patients that we look up and don't do those things. And in fact, that just became a big question for the renewal for the DEA, which I've already had my training, but you can certainly see that could be an issue. And so that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. I think it would be a good idea to keep it, but what do you think? Let me know what you think. All right, let's get into our next story, because we're going to get into the nurses behaving badly. So let's get to this one. We'll start with this. This is in the state of California. This is from the Modesto Bee. It says Stanislaus County health spa nurse in trouble with state board over giving drug to patients. So let's get into it. The California Board of Registered Nursing is taking disciplinary action against a nurse practitioner in Stanislaus County who is accused of furnishing a controlled substance to a medical spa client without a prescription from a physician. So I wanted to stop here because we have nurse practitioners across the country that own medical spas, and they legitimately do. But I want to say you need to know the laws in your state. And this is where a lot of people get into trouble because they don't know the laws for their state. People will help you open up your clinic, but you have to do your own due diligence, and that's where you need to have um, good guidance on this. So it says the board accusation alleges that registered nurse Gifty Adu used ketamine hydrochloride in performing platelet-rich plasma hair restoration treatments on clients. Ketamine is a Schedule III controlled substance under state law, requiring an order or prescription from a physician for medical use. The nursing board investigation concluded that Adu furnished ketamine to clients without a prescription from a supervising doctor. In addition, the health spa did not have standardized procedures for the use of ketamine. Adu has worked as a nurse practitioner and certified injector at the Aesthetic Lab, a medical spa offering Botox, fillers, skin rejuvenation, and other services at offices in Modesto and Turlock. Adu is scheduled for an October 16th hearing on state allegations. According to the nursing board, Adu also furnished a 30-day supply of a compound containing ketamine to two clients in July and April of 2021 and to a third patient in March of 2022. Tracy Green, a Los Angeles attorney representing Adu, said that the state accusation is misleading. Her client has been a nurse practitioner since 2011 and has the ability to write prescriptions. She denies doing anything improper. She was a minority owner under the supervision of a practitioner who was a majority owner. Her understanding was that she was within the parameters set up for the practice. Green said no medical harm was done to clients. According to the University of Illinois College of Pharmacy, ketamine has become a popular and controversial analgesic for acute and chronic pain, such as people with cancer or burn injuries. Misuse of ketamine may cause hallucinations, disorientation, high blood pressure, increased heart rate, and worse effects. The American Med Spa Association reported last year that ketamine, a medication dating to the 1950s, has seen a resurgence in reducing patients' agitation after a nose job or other cosmetic surgeries. So this stems from an anonymous complaint in October 2021 that Adu prescribed ketamine to clients without proper supervision. The board accusation says Adu admitted during the investigation she used ketamine for clients getting hair restoration treatment. The supervising physician for the Aesthetic Lab clinics told a state investigator he wasn't aware ketamine was used at the clinics. The physician said it was not documented in patients' charts he reviewed. Yeah, okay. According to the licensing board, Adu is subjected to disciplinary action on grounds of unprofessional conduct, violation of regulations, and unauthorized practice of medicine. It's kind of tough to practice in California, I gotta say. California's got a little crazy. Cuckoo. Okay. Anyway, let's go on. So Green said an oral form of ketamine was given to Aesthetic Lab patients because of the pain associated with the hair restoration process, and also given to clients in a 30-day supply for use at home. The attorney said the nursing board often asks for the surrender of the license in disciplinary cases. Green said Adu is more likely to receive a reprimand or probation because of no prior violations. She was cooperative with the board, and the issue is whether there is adequate supervision. So we'll see what happens in this story. We'll be following it because, again, I just wonder about this alleged anonymous tip. Okay. Like, know your laws. This is why I say know how to protect yourself. Know how to protect yourself. Okay, let's get into it because it's been all over TikTok and everywhere else. So we're going to talk about it. This is about this Michigan nurse who faces backlash for a blackface incident. It's from News Channel 3. And like I said, it's been all over. So this is out of Lansing, Michigan. It says a Michigan nurse is facing backlash for wearing blackface to a party, shining a light what one medical professional says is a lack of accountability among her peers. Savannah Sparks shared photos online of McLaren RN Crystal Crow wearing a black afro wig and face makeup during a party last year. Sparks said this is a troubling behavior for someone who works in healthcare. According to Sparks, who is entrusted in the community to provide care to anybody and everybody, including black patients, it's pretty worrisome that she would be so brazen to don blackface and allow it to be posted on the internet. So, again, this is what happened. She didn't post it. Her boyfriend, husband, whoever posted it. Okay, so somebody else posted it, but you wore it. That's my point. So Sparks reviewed Crow's nursing license record and said Crow had 3 operating while intoxicated or impaired charges, which she pleaded guilty to, none of which were reported to the State Board of Nursing. So let's get into this now. This is where I know that I've done some research. So apparently, this nurse went to this party, had it pictures taken in blackface. It got posted. It was reported to her employer, who basically gave her a slap on the wrist and said, "Don't do it again. We can't really discipline you because you didn't post it. Your significant other did." So they did nothing about it. But this other person went deeper and found that she had previous um, convictions on her license, previous discipline on her license, and that she had completed a drug rehab program and was supposed to report to the board if she had any other problems. And apparently, she had 3 DUIs that she didn't report to the Board of Nursing. So the internet sleuths got to sleuthing and reported it. So Sparks says that that's a lack of accountability, not just from Crow, but also from McLaren. A spokesperson for McLaren, Greater Lansing, said that they're aware of the video since Friday and have started an internal review because obviously, now the stuff has hit the fan, right? So there's a lot more to this story. If you haven't looked it up, look it up. But yeah, it got out there. It's on TikTok and everything else, but I had to bring it up because everybody's talking about it. And let me know what you say, what you think. Quite frankly, I'm like, to me, you're a nurse. You know how social media is today. Why would you do that? Why would you go to a party dressed that way? It would be like me going and dressing into Asian garb and slanting my eyes and doing all those crazy things that I see people do that I would not do. I'm not Asian. Why would I do that? Somebody's culture is not your costume. Anyway, rant over, but I just wanted to point that out. Yeah, nurses behaving badly. But now I want to end it on a great note, and this is our nurse making a difference. And this comes from Air Guard nurse walked along the Taliban to rescue patients from Kabul. This story is about then Captain Lady Looning. So it says a man who began hemorrhaging blood in midair after surgery, an infant whose veins wouldn't hold an adult-size IV, a woman with precarious spinal cord injury, Captain Katie Looning saved them all. Her calm and skill under pressure that ensured 22 patients survived the suicide bombing at Hamid Karzai International Airport in Taliban-controlled Afghanistan and more than a dozen others in the days before, has earned Looning now a major Military Times 2023 Airman of the Year award. Congratulations to Major Nurse Katie Looning. Congratulations. And she's our nurse making a difference. I thought that was awesome. So Looning of Urbandale, Iowa, is the chief critical care nurse at the Minnesota Air National Guard 103rd Medical Unit and the intensive care unit nurse manager at the Iowa Department of Veteran Affairs. The daughter of an Army veteran, Looning enlisted in the Guard in 2002 to help pay for college and support the local communities where she was raised. She alternated between jobs in Air Force Health Service Management and Army recruiting and rose to the rank of Staff Sergeant in the Army Guard. Then Looning set off on the same path as nurses and her family before her. She returned to her healthcare job in the Air Guard in 2009, earning her bachelor's degree in nursing from Bethel University in 2012, and was commissioned as an officer in 2013. Her time as a nurse in the National Guard and the VA-run hospitals prepared Looning for the emergency she would face nearly 10 years later, several thousand miles from home. So I want to say congratulations to her for winning this prestigious award and thanking her for her service. And I always like to put a shout out on Nurses Making a Difference. If you want to read the full story, let me know. I can put the link in the comments. This story came from, um, I believe it's Military Times, is where I received this. Yeah, Military Times. So just to let you know, airforcetimes.com/news, and you can get that. So that is our Nurse Making a Difference. That's all of our stories for today. Again, I just want to remind you that our challenge is next week. I'm looking forward to that. We had our wheel workshop today. We've got some other great things that are coming up, including TB classes next week. We've got CPR classes. You can sign up for all of those things at either the NurseSharkAcademy.biz for our challenge, or if you want to go to the CPR class or TB training classes, that's on our brand new the Baxter Professional Services healtheducation.com. So join us on either of those platforms. Thank you for joining us today. And I want to say have a great rest of your week and see you next week.